Aboro Aboye, greetings to you. When I came to the Bay Area, um, I worked at a prominent university as a diversity specialist. And this university, like lots of universities, had gone through the trouble of recruiting and enrolling a lot of qualified, intelligent black students. And after the students got there, everybody was all excited and it was new. And then shortly thereafter, there was there was a lot of unrest and dissatisfaction on the part of the students. And being young people, they made their dissatisfaction known, and it made the administration uncomfortable and dissatisfied. And so they hired me on to figure out what's going on. So I got there and I started to survey the students. I started to interview the students. I started to go around and see some of the things that they had pointed out. And there were small problems and then there were big problems. Some things were as simple as um, the themes for holidays, the way the university would characterize these different themes for holidays, food that they had in the cafeteria, music that they played at events, small things. Other things were more significant. Some of the curriculum, the professors themselves, administrators, the history of the university, things that the university had been involved in historically, where they got their money from. These students, they were smart. They were smart. And it was a, high-end university. And so I compiled all this information and I went back and I would, communicate with the university about this is your problem. And when we boil it all down, what I learned from that particular experience was that the university was genuinely interested in change. They wanted to bring about a difference, not only in their educational institution, but in the world. As they produced these different students, they wanted these young African American men and women to go out and have an impact on the world. It was sincere. But they didn't realize that they would have to actually change as a body. The university didn't expect that by bringing in these different students that they would have to shift the way they do things, the way they do student development, the way they do academic advising. They didn't expect that they would have to change who their actual specialists and experts were. It just didn't occur to them, right? And so that was really a big aha moment for me that, we want change, but we're not really prepared for the change. We want the options. We want to be able to choose. We want the diversity. We want the excitement of new things, but we also want things to stay exactly as they were because people like comfort. They like consistency. They like order. We like consistency. We like order. We like comfort, right? We like to be able to predict with a high level of fidelity what's going to happen next, right? But you can't have it both ways. You can't, right? You can't have it both ways. And so the more you want to cling to what was working yesterday and what was comfortable yesterday, it will give you a certain amount of satisfaction, at the moment or from moment to moment. But inevitably, life is going to change. Something is going to shift around you. It's going to force you to change, whether you want to or not. And so it's important that you learn to uh, anticipate and predict and create the space for the kinds of changes that you want. Okay? Because the changes are going to come anyway. Now, this is a big, driving force in my work right now because, as you may know, I was in Africa earlier in the year, and I love going back to, reorientate myself. And one of the things that came out of that particular journey was that I need to revisit my professional roots. I need to bring a different layer of my own knowledge and expertise to bear on my work with people. And so that has, prompted me to go back to my notes, revisit my notebooks, you know, go on the other side of my library. So I have a little, part of my library here, but on the other side of this case is a whole different set of literature, and those are different parts of my training and expertise. And I've loved revisiting these, and these are more professional business, coaching, mentorship, you know, change management, organizational psychology kinds of things. And it's really brought me into a lot of different experiences. And I want to share them with you so you understand what I want to do for you, what I want to offer you. Because what has happened in my work within Orisha Lifestyle has been magnificent. And I've seen how the tradition is growing and expanding, and we're maturing. And it's very encouraging to see. As we mature, as we grow, it becomes more and more apparent to us that we cannot limit our experience or our practice to events, right? Up to this point, we've had a lot of emphasis on events. This ritual, this ceremony, this icon, and I've been talking about this a lot. I'm really critical of the beads, pots, and titles movement. It just isn't. It isn't transformative. And when I went back to Africa and got a new charter for my work in this upcoming season, the return to my professional roots brought me into a broader understanding of why this event-driven thinking is problematic, because it doesn't facilitate change. It doesn't jive with the laws and the principles of change. Okay, change is not based on events. Change is a process. It's always a process, right? And so if you go back to the example of the university, they were thinking event, right? So it isn't just you or just me. This is a systemic. The university itself was just thinking of an event. Hey, we're going to have an enrollment. We're going to have the first day of classes, and there will be 9% of the student population will be African American. Great. And then we'll go on and keep doing what we do. No, there's a process that you've got to go through in order to really absorb that change, optimize that change, to allow that change to become real and permeate the very fabric of this particular institution. So it also reminded me of a part of my work, which is around diversity, right? It's a slight variation on the work I was doing at the university, just around diversity training. This is about facilitation and training and workshops and things like that. And basically, a part of that work was trying to help people recognize their indoctrination into white supremacism, right? Ways in which people are what you would consider racist without necessarily knowing it, okay, or calling it that. But anyway, in that whole process, there was one exercise that I loved to do. It was always powerful, wherein we would ask people to give 5 adjectives to describe themselves. Intelligent, woman, from Wisconsin, professional, mother, right? I don't even know if that was 5. But anyway, you understand what I'm saying. And then you'd have a partner, and your partner would also have 5 adjectives to describe themselves. They write them down on index cards, trade the cards, and then you randomly scratch out one of the descriptions of your partner, give them back the card. Okay. Then you say, now, who would you be? No, firstly, you want to know, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about me scratching out that part of your identity? Oh, of course, people were 99.9% of the time they were offended. Why would you wipe that out? It was just random, just an activity, but still, a person can't avoid that feeling like, why would you remove that? Why would you want me to not be that? What is it about that's offensive to, you know what I mean? All this stuff starts going through minds. Rich discussion. Then the next part of it would be, who would you be now? If you could not continue to be that, who would you be? Sometimes people would say, I'd be nobody. There's no way I could exist if I weren't that. That's a core, fundamental theme of my identity. I couldn't exist without that. Okay. Now, the point of that particular exercise is for everybody to be compassionate and empathetic with one another, to understand when you ask somebody to change something, it might be totally random to you, or it might be totally functional based on what you need to do for your agenda. But when you're asking someone to stop being what, something that they identify as, you're asking them to erase an aspect of their identity. It's going to have an impact on that person. Number one, they don't want to give it up. Most times they don't want to give it up. More importantly, however, you've got to give that person an incentive. You've got to help them to discover and reach out towards something else that will be just as fulfilling, that will allow their identity to still remain complete and intact, even though it may be emerging, it may be, developing. Because there are certain things that you have to stop doing. There's certain ways that you have to stop being in order to grow, in order to change, in order to develop into the person who you are destined to be. There are things that you're going to have to sacrifice. That's the real sacrifice. The most important, powerful sacrifice is the personal sacrifice. And so what I'm doing now is I'm working with people in a more in-depth way to create what we could call connective tissue between events and activities, right? Things that will help you to bridge where you are to where you can go, to help you to, bridge who you are today to who you're destined to become. And in that work, I'm offering people up to 9 levels of support. Okay, up to 9 levels of support. It just depends on where you are. And I'm going to just characterize these areas of support in 3 major chunks, because I want you to go to the website obafemio.com and take a look at, the way I have it laid out, so you can look at the details. There are a fair amount of details. Okay, but at the most basic level, or I should say at the most advanced level, if you're, looking at it from your perspective, there's what I'm offering as a monthly mentorship and coaching relationship. This is for people who are pretty sophisticated. You've got 80% of what you need. You know where you're going. You've got all of the elements there, but maybe you don't know how to put them all together. Or maybe you know how to put them all together, but quite honestly, you just need some accountability. You need to be able to check in with somebody who's, 5 steps ahead of you, who can look and kind of spot check what you're doing and say, yeah, that's right on. This is not working. Why didn't you complete this part? You know what I mean? We need that. Everybody needs that. I have coaches. I have mentors. Every babalawo has a babalawo, right? It's the way it is. So that's the month-to-month setup. People who are pretty much there, but you just need a little bit of tweaking. Then there's an ongoing package, which is for people who are not quite as sophisticated. These are people who mostly have already built a life for themselves. They're on track in one regard. Maybe you have been working in your company for a number of years, and you have been offered management opportunities, but you don't want to manage people, or you don't want to travel, or you don't want to take on managing a budget or something. There's some aspect of moving up in this particular position or in this organization that you're reluctant to take on, okay? And you need to undergo a significant shift, but you don't even really know where to start. But you know it's inevitable. You're not going to stay where you are any longer, and you need a little bit more support on an ongoing basis. That when you have those creeping doubts, when you run into a situation right in the midst of doing what you do, you've got to, you know, you got to have support. You got to have a pretty much on-call support team. That's the second level. And then the third level is the most intensive. Now, this really is what I find. This is a group of people who are, it's not necessarily developmentally related in terms of how sophisticated you are in your change. It has more to do with the fact that what you're doing is very comprehensive. You need a partner. You need a thought partner. You need somebody who's going to work with you, you know, hand in hand in creating something new. Okay. Now, the thing that you create is going to be yours, of course, unless, you know, we create a different kind of a partnership where we want to actually invest in something mutually and create it, co-create it. But for the most part, this is about your project. This is about where you want to go. Maybe you're starting a business. Maybe you've already started the business. You're in full throttle, but it's you know, you need a partner, right? And you can't hire this person for whatever reason, and you'd like me to, you know, partner with you to create the kinds of outcomes that you know you can, but you know you can't do it by yourself. You've tried it already. You've failed enough times, or you've done it with at such a high rate that you know that you got to get some other kind of support. At the end of the day, all of these different offerings are about one thing. They're about change. Change is inevitable. Change is the only constant. And we know this intellectually. We talk about it. We say it. But when it comes down to actually doing the things that will create change in our lives, how often do we engage in the change for a day, for a week, for a month, maybe a season, and then we gradually slip back into what we were doing before, and then a year goes by, 2 years go by, 3 years go by, and you're stuck in the same rut. You're you're wasting so much time. You're dying a little bit every day because you refuse to do the things that are necessary to change. Don't punish yourself like that anymore. Accept that you actually are ready to change, and you acknowledge the fact that you can't do this change on your own. You you have to acknowledge the fact that the change is not going to come from you doing a ritual. It's not. It is not. You are not going to transform your life, your lifestyle. You're not, simply by doing a ritual. I guarantee you. You're not going to transform your lifestyle because you have a certain title. It is not going to happen, right? The only way you're going to change is by changing, and it's a process. And like the example that I gave you before, there are certain things that you're going to have to give up in order to make room for things, you know, for you to adopt. And that's not a process that just comes naturally. It's not a process that you're going to be able to do just by willpower alone. You need help. You need support. And as you get that support, you're going to be relieved. You're going to be excited. You're going to be successful. You're going to see yourself progressing little by little. And then before you know it, you'll be in a whole different reality. You will have created the life that you know is possible for you. You will have created a life for yourself that you know is in alignment with your destiny. It's in alignment with your culture. It's in alignment with your ancestors. It's in alignment with who your lineage is destined to be. So I invite you to visit my website, obafemio.com, peruse all of the options. Let's get on the phone, okay? Call me up, set a time for us. You know, there's a process, there's an intake form that I've got set up there for you. And if you have any doubt, you know, if you think somewhere in your mind that, yeah, this is what I need to do, this is going to work for me, call me. Call me. Let's talk and let's get serious about helping you live the medicine that will heal your life and heal the lives of those who you're destined to serve. Aboro aboye, aboshishe.